Hey guys, and welcome back. Can you believe this is episode 29? I'm almost at the 3.0. But we have a super exciting episode today, and I have a special guest, Stuart Breeding. Hey Stu, how you doing?
What's happening? Thanks for having me.
Sure. And no coincidence, we share a last name. This is my ex, Stu, but I'm so excited to be able to connect with him today because his credentials are a laundry list, and he's one of the best trainers, if not the best trainer I've ever worked with and for. So I'm really excited to discuss some fitness over 40 and just really some of the myths and hacks that a lot of my clients are struggling with as they get older and they're trying to fight that battle of age and injury prevention. Stuart's a personal trainer, corrective exercise specialist, performance enhancement specialist. He has such an extensive background in yoga and martial arts. He's an Army vet from 82nd Airborne. I mean, just think about all of those various components that really can come together to give somebody the most holistic approach to fitness and mental skill set. So just a lot to unpack today. Stu, did I miss anything on all those awesome credentials?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I've been at this a long time. I've been on the floor for 28 years. And it's hard to say that out loud. It's a strange thing to do something for so long that has truly been a gift. And I've had an amazing opportunity to work across the spectrum. And of course, when I started personal training, it wasn't even a thing yet. It was just becoming a concept, and can it actually be a business? And to see where it's at now, and that we're having continued conversations about the science of exercise, fitness, strength training, and that we're also starting to see, thank goodness, more of this medical model kind of merging on the scene,
Mm,
where fitness and nutrition, of course, we've had this discussion for years,
sure.
where fitness and nutrition aren't just gimmicks, aren't just fads, it's
Mm,
their medicine. So,
yeah.
you know,
Well, and I think what the one thing that I really wanted us to focus on today and what kind of prompted our discussion on this is I think that people have started to jump into these group fitness classes, high intensity, CrossFit, just endurance, crazy races like these Tough Mudders and warrior races. And I think there's such a empowerment in doing things like that. But I think that people are overstretching what their body can and needs to handle as they get older. And now, for me, working in a physical therapy facility and in line with orthopedic physicians, like how many people are battling injuries and probably ones they could have avoided if they weren't. And I would just be curious your thoughts on, how much is too much? And are they things you should not say, oh, I'm too old for? I never like to think I'm too old to do anything, but at some levels, like when is it like not appropriate to be doing those really high intensity type of training sessions?
well, you know, excellent question. And I'm going to put out like the big picture here, and you just kind of rein me in as I get going. Let's just talk about let's break fitness down into components first, and then we'll talk about the most important factors. So there's 10 components to fitness. Most trainers don't think that way, and don't have that knowledge. Cardiovascular endurance, muscle endurance, strength, flexibility, body composition, speed, power, balance, reaction time. There's a lot of these variables going on in fitness. And everybody is the same way, and coaches are the same way. They do what they like, they avoid what they dislike. Inside of that fitness regimen, what we would call programming, is volume. Volume is every exercise, every set, every rep, the frequency of doing the workout. And then we split volume into some little, even smaller components.
Mm.
There's objective volume. So if I were to write you a workout program, bench press, squat, deadlift, etc., I name the exercises, I put the weight there, you add it all up with the frequency.
Mm.
So I can use that objective volume to decide, okay, we can look at it again objectively and see what kind of work you're doing. But what we don't look at is the subjective volume. How heavy did that weight feel?
Mm.
How tired were you going into the next session? And subjective volume is not just how heavy a weight is, but how hard the VO2, or how hard was, let's say we're doing a HIIT style workout, how really hard was that for you to perform?
Like scale of 1 to 10 kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And what we see is most trainers, most strength coaches are interested in objective volume. They're interested in the what, but they don't spend any time on the how, the why. Why am I doing this exercise? What's the benefit of this exercise? How do I do it, and how do I do it well? Now, let me add a couple more variables there, and we can kind of break all that down, because it's a lot to unpack, which is really what you're talking about. There's two theories on volume. Maximal recoverable volume. What's the most amount of volume I can do and recover from it? Think CrossFit, right? I'm going to go in every single day and push it. And I'm just speaking in generalities here. I'm going to go in every day and push it as hard as I can, try to recover, come back tomorrow and go as hard as I can. The other side of that is minimal effective volume. This is where I've really, over the last 5 years, started to really personally push myself and all my clients. Minimal effective volume. What's the least amount of volume? Again, all the exercises, all the sets, all the days of training. What's the least amount I can do and get benefit? So as we're moving into the aging process, 40s, 50s, and beyond, and also if we're still interested in doing something like a HIIT class or training for a Tough Mudder, anything like that, this is a big, we've got to look at it more than just, max heart rate intensity, or just subjective volume, just objective volume. We really want to think about accruing that volume over time in the smartest way possible. And I'll give you some statistics on that. If we go back to the fitness dimensions, the number one, the only dimension out of all 10 that makes all other 9 variables of fitness better is strength. Now, when I say strength training, everybody gets their own ideas about what that looks like. But strength training to you is different than it is to somebody that's been under load since they were 14 years old, right? I've been weight training for 40 years.
Well, and that's the difference. I think you just said it, is I think people think strength training has to be weight training. And I'd be curious, can you explain to listeners, like, strength training doesn't mean that you're going in and like throwing barbells around necessarily, right?
Yeah. Well, let's break it down, and then we'll come back to the what. Again, let's talk about the how and the why. So strength training is a neurological, or let's say a neurophysiological coordination. You are taking a movement, and by the nature of the movement and practicing it over and over and over again, which you should be doing, okay, you are eliciting a more efficient neuromuscular efficiency. Everything is starting to smooth out and work together. So think about it like a baby beginning to walk, how hard it is, it's a full on, it's a lot of exertion happening in a little baby just learning how to walk. We don't even think about that anymore, okay? it's a neurological process. So right out of the gate, we have to understand that strength training is not hypertrophy. I'm not getting bigger. And I've had this conversation with many a strength coach that is kind of stuck in this mass equals strength. The more I weigh, the stronger I am, the more weight I push and whatnot. Okay. So strength is a neurological, not necessarily a physiological thing that we see with our eyes. I can tell this person is doing strength training. It's not necessarily true. Okay. For instance, you think about back in the days when I was competing, I weighed 157 pounds when we did Raw Nationals. I did a 435-pound squat. I deadlifted 520 pounds. Well, I'm 30 pounds heavier now, and those weights would crush me.
Yeah. Strength to
Because
weight.
neurologically, I don't practice with those weights anymore like that. And it took me 3 years of practice to learn how to get under that kind of load. Now, here's the cool thing, and we'll talk about the what. The how is really interesting. If we take 3 to 5 exercises, done 3 to 5 sets for 3 to 5 reps, 3 to 5 times a week, you're going to get stronger. Now, I'm not, my programming is not so different. Okay. If you think about that, it doesn't sound like much, but it's fascinating because it really doesn't require, it requires a consistent effort on consistent exercises that meet you where you are, so that we go from its most regressed exercise to the most progressed exercise. So now let's talk about what. We'll talk about progression. You may not be able to do a pull-up, and a pull-up is one of the greatest measures of strength, which in and of itself has 5 to 6 different variables. Most people, again, think of strength one way. There's at least 5 types of strength that I practice, one of which is relative strength. Probably the most important for the beginner. What can you do with your body weight? Can you do a dead hang? Not a pull-up. Can you just hang for 30 seconds? Can you practice that and get stronger, right? Can you do a perfect body weight squat? Hold in a paused position with the hip below parallel and stand up with core integrity, spinal integrity, right? Can you do a plank for X amount of seconds? Then can you do a push-up? Then how do we start to increase the intensity of that? So we go from a dead hang with lengthened arms to maybe halfway, or we do an Australian pull-up. We add a dumbbell or a kettlebell to the body weight squat. We add a push-up to the plank, et cetera, et cetera. So progression of strength training as a coach, first of all, doing a functional movement screening. And this is where everything just gets thrown out. Because I've been in the field a long time, and I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I'm just going to say 9 out of 10 coaches don't know what they're seeing when the exercise is being performed in front of them, because they're only interested in the squat. They're only interested in the what. He did 10 reps of squats. I'm not really paying attention to how or why, right? We just check it off on the box. He did a great workout, high five, awesome. And the how, it is not the what. The what is part of it. We have to have the conversation about objective exercise.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing, just to interject, I think that people aren't patient. They want to go do the hard workouts. They feel like a weenie if they're just doing body weight stuff. So they're not doing it properly. And then they go to the gym or to these classes, or they get with a trainer that isn't mindful. And so then they're doing those simple movements wrong with extra weight on, and thus they're getting injured over time. They may get away with it for a while, but then they're not, because they didn't they weren't willing to take the time and the patience to do the little things first. They just said, ooh, fun, I'll take this class. And then they go jump into a class and start doing those things with extra movements on top of them. And then I think they get hurt.
Yeah, and let's face the facts. Let's just be real, because again, I've seen it all. Um, you know, probably about 10 years ago, we saw about 12 years ago, we saw the invention of what's called the turnkey franchise or the turnkey business. And that's really what populated shopping malls. And I'm talking about turnkey dry cleaners, turnkey cell phone
Like a fast
maintenance.
food of whatever industry.
Correct. So what we see now is the invention, and I won't go through all the laundry list of names, but we all know them, that line the strip centers, and now we have fast fitness, just like we had fast food. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with a hamburger, right? If that is you know, a bread product, a carbohydrate that is right for me with clean meat and clean vegetables, and I made it and I control it. And I love to make a hamburger. I love to make a pizza. And I know everything that's going on that, and all your clients that work with you know what I'm talking about. There's a big difference between that hamburger and the one I get at McDonald's. They are night and day.
Yeah.
And what I'm talking about is there's two kind of variables of fitness. And sadly, what's happening is guys like me, you know, that are, you know, I'm now 53 years old. And again, I don't know, you know, there's, you know, Dr. Irv is in town. He's older than I am. Gunnar Peterson just moved to Nashville. He's a big trainer out of California. I know he's in his 50s. It's a rare thing to find a trainer in his 50s still on the floor. And what I would say is that you don't know what you're doing on the floor unless you've been on the floor for 15 plus years. And that is the kind of mastery that it takes to be able to watch a client in real time and see what it is that they're doing, and be able to come in and say, I know how to fix that. Here's the corrective exercise program that you need to do on your own that will help prevent these injuries that I see that are right around the corner. I'm watching you run on the treadmill, and I can see that there's this issue getting ready to come up. 9 out of 10 trainers that are out there right now. And again, because the model has turned into this, you know, you just flip it. You know, I paid trainers twice as much 15 years ago as they're making today. So I ask you, what quality of trainer, what trainer wants to put in 15 years when they're talking about making $25, $30 an hour?
Well, it's like you were just saying, the quality to convenience. Like, group classes are less expensive. There's times all day, so they're convenient. There's a bunch of locations. So no matter if you're running the kids to school or you've got to be over on this side of town, you could catch a class. So just like fast food, you trade quality for cheap and convenient. And sometimes that's just essential in life. I am not saying that there isn't a benefit to the group thing because it works for you and it's better than doing nothing. But here's what I'll say and what I'll advocate is find a Stu. If you're here in Nashville, if you're not in Nashville, find somebody, do your homework. But what I think would be so helpful, and I almost think it would be a great concept just in and of itself, even in a group facility, of like, get an in-depth technique critique, whatever you want to call it, even a short package of 3 to 5 sessions to make sure that somebody with an eagle eye, with your best interest at heart, can look at you move and give you some pointers. And I'm not going to say in 5 sessions you're going to be magically fixed, though I have seen Stu do some magical things. But I think that just doing something like that, and not just like getting a wild hair and like, ooh, I think I want to go take a class, and not doing any kind of prep before that. And so, Stu, what would that kind of look like? I think you alluded to it a little with like the functional movement screen, but like, what are maybe some takeaways for somebody listening that can't come see you? Like, what are some like real basic before you go take a class, like make sure you can master these things? And that may be a hard question, but any just pointers that you might could give?
Yeah. And again, you know, the, let's look at the big picture again and then come back to that. So try to rein me back in as I go
I'm
through.
trying.
So that, and I'm putting all this out there so that people that are listening can really start to understand, why am I trying to make this simple? Why am I trying to make my fitness endeavors a simple thing? And you're a perfect example. I would argue, you did not have a traumatic event that led to your back injury. There was a continued long-term, right, back to likes and dislikes. You liked to run as hard as you could. You liked to train as hard as you could. And I could never really rein you in on technical things.
Yeah, that's fair.
And over time, long periods of time. And looking back on it now, I think, you and I both would agree, woulda, coulda, shoulda, I wish. So I think this conversation needs to be that, let's say you're going to an O Theory, a CrossFit or something like that. The first thing that I would look at is how broad of a training spectrum are they on? Okay. So for instance, there's a minimum of 9 things that need to be in every fitness program design. And it starts with learning how to stand. So to your question, right, listen to what I'm saying here and how ridiculous it may seem to a lot of people that are listening. But most people, right, they're stuck in a chair all day. They're staring at a computer. Their head is being projected forward. They have overactive muscles that should be underactive. Their core is underactive. They're probably a little heavy. Their glutes aren't firing correctly. Their knees are internally rotated. Their shoulders are pronated, and they're going to start running on a treadmill, right? Yep. Like that. So if I'm like that sitting and I start doing it at excessive load, heavy, every time your foot lands, you're landing with 3 times body weight. Okay.
Yeah.
So what am I getting ready to do? And there's these 9 things that really need to be checked off the list. A good trainer will teach you how to stand, head, neck neutral, shoulder blades retracted, core and ribs drawn down, feet screwed through the floor. Every single exercise is abbreviated almost always. If I'm doing a squat, how much time do I spend standing and returning back to that perfect posture, right? Walking. I'm going to watch people walk. How are they walking? Most people that are running on a treadmill, their anterior tibialis isn't firing and they sling their foot around. That's why there's so many injuries on a treadmill. Is people hit the side of the treadmill and fall off the back of it. So, can I get my foot into dorsiflexion? Are my ankles working correctly? Are my glutes strong enough that my knees don't internally rotate? Then you have hinging patterns, the squat, the lunge, push, pull, throw, carry. All those things need to be in part of a workout design. Now, I saw recently where there's a new place that opened up where they're doing all rowing exercises. So not only do we have to move in all those 9 areas and pay attention to how we're moving, okay? There's 3 planes of motion. There's the frontal plane, the sagittal plane, which is all rowing. It's all happening in the sagittal plane. That's your barbell exercises that are all happening inside the box, right? But athleticism is happening in the transverse plane, where you see me spend a lot of time where I'll use barbells. Yes, I use kettlebells. Yes, I use rowing machines. but then I teach the body how to functionalize it and move. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me add to that and we'll come back to it. There's 3 things as we're moving past age 40 that will absolutely is the only fountain of youth there is. And this is science. This is not conjecture. 3 things that must be in a program design. Strength. Why? Because it makes everything else easier. It reduces my overall stress. I'm able to go up and down the stairs easier. I have more energy to exercise. I'm more efficient while I'm exercising. Okay. So strength, body composition, specifically a higher muscle mass, right? Equals awesome hormones. And then VO2 max. And that kind of circles back to your question where HIIT training is so popular. Yes, HIIT training should be in there. It's the best way to increase VO2 max. But how much? In what way?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like pounding cardio HIIT. Like, I don't think people understand. It's just about heart rate differentiation. Like, if you can get your heart rate into your anaerobic zone, it doesn't really matter how you're getting there, right?
Well, now that's, if we look at, for instance, Orange Theory has popularized this EPOC, excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. After I exercise, my body is trying to return back to homeostasis and it's sucking all this oxygen in, which of course means a higher rate of fat metabolism after the session. This is good stuff. But if you look at EPOC post cardio HIIT, which again, the science is pretty clear that is as minimal as 4 rounds of 4-minute HIIT, right? 4 minutes on a bike, hard as you can go for 4 cycles, about 16 minutes, done 3 times a week will increase your VO2. We don't need a ton of it. But there's a big difference between EPOC done through cardiovascular activity. Say I got EPOC through a treadmill and EPOC through weight training. Weight training, getting EPOC through weight training or a HIIT is more beneficial because now that, so if I get EPOC, go into EPOC from cardio, there's about a 5% increase in caloric uptake,
which is not
right?
a lot for somebody.
It's hardly anything.
1,000 calories a day was like 100 calories.
Right. It's hardly anything. And it's almost a joke. You think about, all right, how hard it is. People talk about these 1,000-calorie workouts, whatever, man. You burn 1,000 calories in an hour, man. You weigh 300 pounds and you were at max heart rate the whole time. Let's talk about 500, just for easy math, right? So a 5% increase in a 500-calorie workout, right? I mean, it doesn't, it's nothing.
No. Well,
right?
and I think what I think people do is they hear that, because I guarantee you somebody listening is going to hear that and think, okay, well, great. Then if I do these HIITs every day, I'm going to increase my VO2 faster. So I think the other thing people latch onto is they hear that something's effective, like HIIT training, more effective than steady state cardio. Oh, so I probably should do HIITs every single day,
Yeah.
And so I think that's the other issues. Like, people don't, like you were saying, people don't realize how much volume that is on their body, and that it's not something you need to do every single day.
Yeah. So that's EPOC through cardio. Again, 500 calories, maybe you burn an extra 25 to 24 hours after that, right? So that whole marketing pitch is not accurate, okay? But here's the thing. If you get it through weight training, it's somewhere between 15 and 20% increase. But here's the side effect. I don't do HIIT training anymore with weights, meaning now I will with certain levels. I won't do them with barbells. If I do them, I'm very, very tentative.
Sure.
Because yes, there is benefit there, But what ends up happening is when we're pushing heart rate to those levels, our technique, our form is all but broken down. And now we're back to, and again, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but this is, as we all know, has been a problem with CrossFit for the general exerciser. For a more elite lifter, somebody who is conditioned and can do that, who can maintain really good, strong mental clarity and integrity at max heart rate, so their technique doesn't break down, knock yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, they're, again, I think that the industry tries to mainstream things that are fun and exhilarating and different, and people feel like so empowered by it. But then I think they're not realizing how out of shape most people are. And then like walking in off the street and like signing up for CrossFit. Like, I just think there has to be some progression up to that people aren't willing to do because they just want to start it and they're motivated and like, let's just go do it and I'll deal with the injuries later. But I don't think they realize like how over time, how much that can really break them down. And so that's the next question I have is it, in your opinion, more effective just from an overall fitness, heart health, strength component to say it's better to do something less intense and move every day, meaning the volume is not such that you need several rest days or recovery? Or would you say it's more effective to pick some of these maybe more aggressive, higher intensity, higher volume type workouts when you're ready, but only work out 3 or 4 days a week and take 3 or 4 days off? Is there a difference, or just is that all kind of personal preference?
Yeah, again, so let's go back to the 3 things that are the most important when we're talking about fitness training and longevity. And at some point, we are all going to be having this conversation. And it doesn't mean we're old. It means we finally got smart. Okay. One is strength, 3 to 5 exercises, 3 to 5 times a week, 3 to 5 reps. Okay. Hypertrophy, increasing the size of the muscle. And again, that is a lot of our female lifters or people in fitness may or may not like that. And we're not talking about a gazillion pounds. And as most of your clients have found out, they can increase muscle mass, decrease weight, and probably decrease the overall size of their clothes and whatnot. We see this happening all the time. The muscle is so much more dense than fat. Okay. Yeah. And it is the only thing that's metabolically active between the two.
Right.
And that's your choice. You get muscle or fat. Which would you like? Okay. one has longevity, one has acute disease related to it. Okay. So the third is VO2 max. So hypertrophy as compared to strength is pretty much the same. 3 to 5 exercises, 3 to 5 times a week, but for rep ranges of 6 to 30. Think 6 reps, slow, heavier weights, all the way to what would be called an AMRAP, as many reps as possible, where we're breaking down the muscle tissue, recovering the muscle, getting it bigger. Okay. VO2 max, increasing it as easy as 4 rounds of 4-minute. Okay. So let's think about a circuit that has a maximal strength ability, like a deadlift done for 3 reps. I rest for X amount of time. And then I go and do an exercise that's more built around hypertrophy. I'm trying to get the muscle bigger, right? And that's a multi-joint exercise, a squat, a deadlift. Well, not so much a deadlift, but
like a push-up,
overhead press, a push-up, any compound lift where we're moving multiple joints and under some kind of resistance. It doesn't have to be necessarily a weight. Bands also add resistance, okay? But that rep range needs to be a little bit higher. And with that higher rep range comes a higher heart rate. But also back to strength training, if you're picking up a weight that's semi-maximal, approaching maximal, you may do it 3 reps, but when you set that bar down, you're going to be looking at probably 90% max heart rate. Okay.
Mhm.
Now we go over and jump on some safe, effective cardio like an Aerodyne. Okay. And hit it for a minute at max heart rate. And I start, and maybe I've got a couple of these exercises that are working on the most important component, which is stability strength. How am I moving under load? And this is a lot of these fun exercises that I've created over the last 20 years that have become more and more popular, really longer than that. About 30 years ago, I started playing with those. So the circuit for me, for the general fitness practitioner, moving through standing, walking, hinging, squatting, push, pull, throw, carry, is the optimum way to train, done for about 30 to 45 minutes, 3-4 times a week.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second to that is what you won't like. And that's what I keep saying. And I'm kind of torn between which is really long-term better. And that's the good old fashioned bodybuilding routine, but not done like a lot of people, do an exercise, 10-minute rest break. I'm talking about supersets where chest exercise, back exercise, leg exercise, it's more advanced
Like
than
a
the
body split kind of a concept.
correct.
Gotcha.
But, and then we take our VO2 training and do it separately after the session for 15, 20 minutes, right? And we also have recovery that's built into that. And I'm looking at functional movement screening. I might have a couple of days where I'm looking at corrective exercise, but as my base model is this bodybuilding model, because the heart rate tends to stay in this zone 2-3, right? That 75% zone, which really doesn't get the conversation that it should, but it's the bookends. See, we keep falling back to likes and dislikes, what's popular, this and that, and what's being pushed out there that people just regurgitate. Yes, certain amounts of HIIT training need to be in there. Cardio HIIT is safer than getting it through strength training, but a big part of your base should be that zone 2-3, somewhere around 75% max heart rate. So if you're doing effective bodybuilding, body split type training, your heart rate is probably varying somewhere between 70 and 90% with an overall average of about 75 to 80%.
Gotcha. Well, we've only got like a minute here, so I'm going to kind of just recap. I know it's a lot and probably warrants a follow-up maybe to talk more about that heart rate stuff. But I think big takeaway, first of all, thank you so much for joining me and really talking through a lot of that. But I think the biggest takeaways I heard is, number one, hook up with somebody that can give you a really good functional movement screen, get you ready if you're going to jump into a group type class. And I think secondly is just really looking at strength and that kind of combination of strength and cardiovascular, kind of a circuit training approach if you're going to just do it a couple, 3 days a week. So guys, if you want to find Stu, stuartbreeding.com, or you guys can reach out to me and I can hook you guys up. He does virtual or live. So I got to wrap it up here, but thanks so much, Stu. That was so helpful. And I hope you guys all learned something from him. He's definitely got a lot of knowledge to share. So thanks, Stu.
Yeah, anytime.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.